Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's a very timely question since we're celebrating the week, the International Day for People Living with Disabilities. Honourable Speaker, I wish to just start off by acknowledging and thanking Shore Buses, as well as Kerala Chan Buses, and one more bus company in Lambasa, Delhi Buses, for providing reserved seats for people with disabilities on their buses. I thank the initiative. However, I do ask the bus companies in order to allow that accessibility to make their buses wheelchair accessible with ramps or even gentler inclines on their stairs. Honourable Speaker, I just want to very briefly just highlight the national structure in place for disability. In 2018, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act commenced, and then the Auditor General tabled a report in 2020 on the performance audit on the access for persons with disabilities on public transport. This document highlighted, Honourable Speaker, that there is a knowledge gap that is in the public service as well as the public at large to be able to adhere to the Act. We've had sessions with the organizations for persons with disabilities to get their feedback dealing with disability. An issue that was not highlighted in the Auditor General's report is that persons with disabilities that use mobility devices often had to rely on other modes of public transport and not buses due to the issue of inaccessibility. Honourable Speaker, the coalition government, as soon as we came to government, did a review of the bus fare vouchers that were available to people with disabilities. And of course, we know it was very impractical and also was not been able to be used by those that, people with disabilities that had no bus services where they live, including maritime and rural areas. And so the coalition government converted the bus fare top-up into cash. And that is an ongoing process. We've just announced in the budget this year for those elderly that are over 70 due to frailty to be able to use that transport assistance. So over 70 at the moment, but for all people living with disabilities, they should be receiving cash now instead of a bus fare voucher. Honourable Speaker, the work is ongoing. We have district disability committees that are chaired by the relevant provincial administrators and district officers about making public transport accessible. Yes, Honourable Speaker, the issue of airports, especially when we go to Nandi Airport, we see it's more disability accessible. And this has been feedback also from our regional organizations with people living with disabilities, finding out that Nandi Airport is very accessible for people living with disabilities. Of course, this will need to be standardized across the country in other airports as well. Honourable Speaker, the need to revise the building code that needs to be finalized. It's still in the process so that there are minimum standards for accessibility. So we still have buildings, restaurants, businesses that are still not wheelchair accessible or easily accessible without people living with disabilities. And just to conclude, we have the draft Fiji national policy on the rights of persons with disabilities currently being drafted. So a national disability policy, this is also under the coalition government, we are currently working on to submit to Cabinet. It has gone through a lot of consultation and an issue that was raised, and I think this is something that I had mentioned in the past, that perhaps because of the number of people living with disabilities in our country, which is close now to about 145,000 people in Fiji are living with some form of disability, and not just disability from birth, but due to accidents, as well as people living with NCDs. We have an increased number of people that are using wheelchairs now, or unable to move around using walking sticks and crutches. So we need to, of course, ensure that as we move forward, Honorable Speaker, that we are mindful of this statistic. And so part of the submission to the draft disability policies to perhaps explore having a separate department for disabilities under the ministry as well, so that their needs are catered to. The moment our disability allowance is really for those that have been disabled from birth, or some extreme form of disability, but increasingly, the members of the public are submitting their medical certificates to certify them with some form of illness that affects their ability to work, to be productive, or to move around. So they are also seeking disability allowance. So this is something that we will need to consider in the budget, in the next budget, in terms of the numbers that are coming through. But Honorable Speaker, this is not just an effort for government alone, so please do not wait for government. I appeal to our restaurant owners, our business owners, building owners, please, in the private sector, really to start putting wheelchair accessible ramps, footpaths, as well as disability parking spaces that are monitored to ensure that those that are not disabled are not using those parking spaces. And as well as disability accessible public conveniences, Honorable Speaker, button operated doors on all our buildings, and as well as elevators. I think, Honorable Speaker, I've raised this in the past, also for your good office to consider, that even at the entrance of our Parliament building, Honorable Speaker, needs a wheelchair accessible ramp, so that people living with disabilities, when they come through the front of their house, that they can access our house as well. There is an elevator, but they're told to go around to the back, and it's usually very crowded and hard for them to access the back entrance to use the elevators. Sometimes it doesn't work, and often when it rains, it's very difficult for them to get off from the vehicles to wheel themselves to the elevator. So for your consideration, Honorable Speaker, and something for Parliament to consider. Certainly there's space in the front of the building to do that as well. On that note, Honorable Speaker, I just wish to thank all members to continue to encourage the community to work with government to really look out for our people living with disabilities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.